Hello, everyone. Welcome to game number 2 of the 5th Newcomers Tournament. This game we have Fredward, Zephyrim, Spec, and Drakens. Fredward has 1 win to their name, beating Zephyrim and a few others in the previous round. So this will be a rematch for 2 of the players, and then 2 players we haven't seen. I'm philothanic. Joining me today is AndreasG. Andreas, what do you think about this map?
Oh, it's kind of a tricky one because you see, it's kind of a split map in many ways. You got the silicon hidden down in the right corner, and you have patches of iron here and there, which many of the HQs are dependent on. So I'm curious to see what the players come up with here. One nomad out of Redward taking advantage of these high silicons down to the side, yeah.
Very early nomad, 30k debt.
Ooh, that's a lot. Then again, he does have access to good water, he has access to good aluminium and silicon. So I could see why it's an attractive spot. We'll see what the other players come up with here. Spect spawning up in the top right corner next to some iron right there.
Yeah, Spect found is okay. The one problem they're going to run into is water access.
Found a robot though, so maybe they're going to try and neglect it, but then again, that might not be the right way to go about it.
Zephyrim is going to compete with them for that water.
Ooh.
Being right below them. And then our last found, Drakens. Drakens, all by themselves, has pretty much everything you need.
Except from silicon.
Doesn't have silicon, and carbon might be a little bit hard. Well, there is some carbon that would be a little bit of a ship. Right.
That's
north of the
fine
colony.
though, it's not too long. If the power price ain't too high, then I guess it will do just fine.
The Drakens might get the benefit that being over here in the corner, people might forget that they're right over there. It's a lot easier to attack the 3 people who are right here, 1 screen width away from each other.
Yeah, this far I gotta say I like Fred's spawn the most, but then again he also paid a price for it, so we'll see if that is gonna get him in trouble or not when it comes to depth later in the game.
Yeah, Fred's found was fine. I think this map it's tricky. I mean, so there, at first glance it looks bad, right? But then you say, well, wait, right to the right of this colony is a pretty good scavenger spot, right? And it's near some water. It's maybe a little bit further than aluminum that you'd like, and there are nukes on the market. We did have our first nuke, Spec, nuking out some of Fredward's aluminum. Nuking things down to low, probably the best thing you can do for a nomad, because otherwise they'll just switch their claims around.
I don't like generally nuking nomads too much though, but there's no other claim he could really put it on where there's more aluminium to be had, but then again he's running 2 lows with a 50% efficiency increase, so they're effectively 2 mediums right there, so it's not going to stop him too much.
Fredward is the first to HQ3. Everybody else on HQ2, let's check in on Drakens, the one all the way on the other side of the map. Drakens is moving to power.
A single one though.
A single one, right. I would have liked that move a lot better if it was 2 on HQ2. Drakens didn't found with too much debt. You put 2 wind turbines down, and those are both, that's a very strong and a strong tile right to the north of it. You're probably going to be able to pay through that 8k debt.
Yeah, I'm having a bit of trouble with this power play because, as you see it here, this wind turbine is effectively not doing anything. It's just slowing down the rate of which he gets depth. If that was a solo food or whatever, that would actually get him cash on hand, make him able to push to HQ3 sooner, and therefore being able to go more boom into power and therefore making money out of it. So, right, I don't know too much about this.
It's one of those cases where you don't want to have single production buildings, right? If you can help it.
Yeah, but then again, having a single power doesn't add any cash to your hand whatsoever. So I would rather see something else.
That being said, Drakens does only need another 2k to get the upgrade to HQ3, and then they'll be able to put down a second wind turbine just as his dust storm's coming in.
Ooh, dust storm coming in, yeah.
that should be, if they can do that, then that would sort of save the strategy. Let's take a look at. You gonna say something?
I was gonna say I think Zephyrim is probably gonna make a move into power if he possibly can into wind turbines here, sitting on a high quarry there. So he's gonna be the one who's gonna have the easiest time making that transition, if possible. Make advantage of this dust storm coming in.
Now the only thing is, why are you building a wind turbine on very weak tile when you have a weak and a strong tile just to the left of your HQ by that constructing electronics factory on the cliff face?
Yeah, I don't know too much. That thing is getting in 0.4 power, which is essentially very little.
Yeah, so I mean, it's one of those things where it's the right idea, but the execution could be so much better, right?
Yeah, now the storm is going down. He could be having 2-3 wind turbines and some edge, bringing him in 6 power every tick. Yeah, paid through his
Drakens,
debt.
on the other hand, getting up their second wind turbine, going to be earning about 500 a second, paying off debt. We'll have no debt very shortly. Fredward is going to target it, so back down to 1. Fredward has 2 geotherms right now, and they have not been attacked at all. No spies have been bought.
Fredward
HQ4.
Ooh, that's sneaky. I like going into geotherms as a nomad, because then you pay for it with silicon, and having so much silicon access as Fredward does with 2 highs next to each other. It's the price you often can pay to slow down a little bit, especially with this price and such. But then again, it's the dust storm, so we'll see how much it pays off.
The 2 geotherms are a long-term play. It's Fredward saying, I founded with 30k debt. I do need to worry about my debt, so I'm just going to build 2 geotherms and then hopefully not have to worry about my debt. Hopefully there's not enough power that is online that I'll be able to pay through a decent chunk of it, and he has been able to do that. It's paid right back down to his founding debt, so it's a good move for Fredward. Drakens is making power money right now, a little bit of it, and once this freeze was quite well placed by Fredward, guessing correctly where the Goon Squad would be. But as an unnecessary gamble when the spies are 2k, right?
Mm-hmm. I do want to point out, though, that Spect is doing a good job when it comes to the food market. I assume he's the one who EMP'd Fredward's 3 farms over here, and he's running 3 himself. He's stacking up on it. I would say it's maybe 30k in just the food there they can sell out soon. And there he does, and there he has the upgrade. And he's right behind Fredward, or even ahead if you look at the cash on hand.
Zephyrim was the one who used the EMP onto Fredward's farms.
So Zephyrim helped Spect out. That's interesting.
I mean, he was attacking the lead, what looked like the leader at the time, so it did seem all right. Zephyrim over here is needing 19k steel. It's gonna be a while until they can get 19k in steel. That being said, they do have 24. They need 28k for the upgrade, so they're only 4k away if they sell out of some of this water and high-priced iron. But they find themselves 3 HQs behind Fredward and 2 HQs behind everybody else. That's never a good place to be.
I'm having a hard time with understanding Zephyrim's play here, because he's not producing his primary resource still. Or not primary resource, but primary upgrade resource, which is still, yeah. He's always going to have to pay a lot for those upgrades.
And it's expensive. It's 141 steel.
Absolutely. Like, a bit back, you could excuse it with iron being so high. So maybe sell down on that and buying into steel. But that has shifted once again, and steel is over 3 times more expensive than the iron, so you really want to produce it.
Are making next to no money. Swap those out. You have 800 aluminum in the bank. Build a pair of steel mills, and then you would have had that upgrade a long time ago.
Absolutely.
And unfortunately, because of that, Zephyr is in C debt at HQ2. Now, this is a high debt game. Spect is in D debt right now, 128k debt. They didn't ever build any power, and they're shipping a decent distance as a robot all the way, getting this water. Now, that water has been powering their life support play, which has worked out quite well in terms of upgrades, but they've done nothing to mitigate that power price.
Redwood really being unlucky, if you ask me, facing 2 dust storms, going with 2 geothermal plants himself, giving a lot of the power money into Drakens' hands instead of himself.
Spec did just build some wind turbines. Unfortunately, they were frozen by Fredward the majority of that dust storm.
Yeah, and the play is a bit late. The power price is creeping under 100 when it transitions into it. There's a dust storm coming up, but then again, you know, one of your opponents a double geothermal, the other one is running surplus in terms of wind turbines. I guess you want to cover his own costs being robotic and everything, but still, I would like to see that transition maybe a bit sooner. But what can you do heading into greenhouse farms and so on and so forth?
Right, Fredward hit by a EMP that hits pretty much everything. Fredward not necessarily splitting their production as good as you would like, considering there are EMPs on the market. Like to see a little bit more to the south, just to make those EMPs less painful. But Drakens also hit by an EMP on their life support. It's kind of hard how to play this one. Fredward definitely has an advantage in being the person in HQ5, but Spec just upgraded, has more money than Fredward, but a lot more debt.
I'm not too sure about the upgrade though. I sensed the opportunity of possibly sneaking one up on Fredward there, but too late now taking that upgrade, which is also fine, of course.
Yeah, 100k in the bank is Spec. Maybe think about making a majority buy onto Fred, but Fred has enough money to defend themselves almost, so it would have been needed to be very lucky to pull it off.
Yeah, he was sitting on 20k when I made the suggestion, but as you see, he's making money fast, yeah?
Yeah, once that EMP comes undone, Fred's going to be making money again. Look at these chems right now, $221 per tile. Fred has carbon scrubbing, Fred is slant drilling.
And just getting thinking machines.
Yep, going for the Offworld. Let's take a look at the Offworld markets. 36k profits on those food launches.
Yeah, that's great launches, yeah. It only cost him 65k or so now to get an Offworld, so that's just 2 launches and you're even Steven.
Right, the only thing is dynamites are 3k.
Oh.
So if you're planning on going for that Offworld push, you want to be throwing those dynamites around just to drive the price up.
Yeah, absolutely.
You could be maybe using a spy to see if Drakens' hacker array, which is doing a food shortage. It looks like a patent lab is undefended. If it's not, could blow that up. Could also check out Drakens' pleasure dome, blow that up. That pleasure dome is in the wrong spot.
Absolutely. Take advantage of the wrong what do you say, adjacency bonuses. Really have to put that next to the habitat modules, which actually gives the 10% for each module.
Now maybe Drakens is thinking I'm going to switch that into an Offworld later, but it's still in the wrong spot because we were just talking about the really cheap dynamites. Look how far of a distance it is for that truck to get the Offworld back, and then there's magnetic storms. You could blow up the truck in transition and just waste, 50k every time somebody blows up your Offworld. So it's a poor choice for both the pleasure dome and reserving the Offworld spot. Now Drakens is buying into the very cheap Chrono Zephyrim right now, and it's an okay move. Oh, Drakens won the pleasure dome in an auction. I missed that. Thank you, chat, for correcting me. So
really?
Blame Soren for auctioning a pleasure dome off in a terrible spot, right?
Really? Is that Soren's doing right there?
Yeah. Okay, I take back all my criticisms of Drakens.
And here he goes bragging about his code in all this shows, yeah? Nah,
Fredward
nice.
does
Great.
have the first Offworld. It is goon squatted. But once again, 3k dynamites.
And yeah, he also has the patent, yeah? Thinking machines. So.
He does have thinking machines, but it's on top of a silic resource tile, so you could use, if you're desperate, you can use nukes to pop the goon squad and then follow that up with some dynamite.
Oh, he really needs to goon it, at least, though. Oh, he does have the goon, my bad. Wrong vision right there.
A little bit too late for that nuke onto Draken's iron. That would have been so much better way back when Drakens was only on HQ2.
Absolutely.
That being said, Drakens does need 58k steel for the upgrade, and this buy-in to Zephyr is slowing it down. I did miss that Drakens was on HQ4 when I was starting to say that the buy-in to Zephyr was an okay idea. I like it a lot less since Drakens on HQ4. I think you need to get that HQ5 upgrade first, then go for the player who's really cheap.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure if this is true, but it seems like he's sold out of steel to buy into Zephyr, which put him back quite significantly here. And now having trouble being nuked here, his metal mine down to a trace, he's going to have a hard time producing steel, although somebody's sold down it quite a bit and now he's buying into it. He's getting a get out of jail free card right there, if you ask me, yeah.
Playing into steel, playing around with steel right now. You can see the price just went right back up again. But fortunately that is Drakens buying a game supply worth of iron.
Absolutely. I think he...
Maybe too much.
He understood the danger in the trace and overreacted, I guess you could say, but still. Now at least the steel mills is going to be in production for quite some time.
So Fredward definitely setting themselves up for the late game here. Look at the optimizations Fredward has. They've been running off of 2 optimization centers for quite a while. They have efficient optimization in a handful, or advanced in a handful of items, and pretty much all of those items are in triple digits with the exception of fuel. So Fredward's combined with that Offworld 47k profit launches, Fredward is just making a absolute ridiculous amount of money compared to everybody else.
Also running 2 optimization centers, got double optimization and almost all the life support this far, got chemicals 3 times optimized, electronics 2 times optimized, 2 Offworlds now. I mean, the game is all in his hands, if you ask me. If I were in his position, I would look to maybe get the buy on Drakens here and get some cheap stock on Zephyr.
Yeah, it does look like Zephyr, finally HQ4. We haven't really been talking about them much. They finally built some wind turbines in a good spot, so that's good. Did put up some steel mills, put some pairs for their electronics factories, so they're coming back well, but unfortunately it's too little too late. Drakens is 73% of the upgrade, but then Drakens upgraded themselves.
Yeah. Fredward going for the play that we suggested earlier. This is, in my opinion, the best way to do it for Fredward. Drakens not defending their stock properly, buying into Zephyr, making him even more attractive. Fredward now buying out Drakens would lead to him also getting the stock on Zephyr, unless he sells out of that, and would in a sense just hand the game into his hands. So interested to see if Drakens sells out or what he really does here, because it does seem to me to be in quite a hard position at the moment.
Right, so Drakens is making a mistake that's really easy to make. So he spent a lot of money attacking somebody else when he couldn't make the buy. Now the problem is you're sitting here with all that money doing nothing for you. It's not being invested in optimizations to make your life support production better. It's not being invested into Offworlds to chase these ridiculously high 55k launches. It's not being invested in upgrading your HQ so you have 5 more claims, right? It's just sitting there, and it's been sitting there doing nothing for like, what, 3 souls now?
Mm-hmm.
If he used that money to upgrade and then bought into Zephyr, they'd probably be right at this very same spot, 90% of the buy on Zephyr, give or take, but have gotten there faster.
Absolutely. Or maybe you
Now,
could sit back, take a more passive approach, and then play reactively instead of this aggressive play that he did here, which really just put a big target in the top of his forehead, and him not being able to have the cash to back that target up, finding himself in this hard situation. Oh, this is rather interesting though. Nobody's really getting any aggressive on Fredward's Offworld. He's just been able to launching this 50-60k launches regularly without anybody trying to fight him. And now he almost got the buy to do whatever he wants to do with it, right? The money, I mean. Got 600k, could take out Drakens. And I don't see how anybody's going to stop him now. They're finally getting aggressive against him, but it's a bit too late, isn't it?
Too little, too late. Spies are 4.5k. You should have popped those, put down a spy on those off-worlds, seen what you needed to see. Dynamites are only 6k. When you don't have an off-world of your own, bouncing a dynamite off of a off-world is a good move to make. Simply because you open up an off-world for attack. They blow up one of your farms. What do you care?
Absolutely. And you also have this underground nukes being at 6k. You also can pop on those off-roads. Yeah, there's basically no excuse to not go for them.
Underground nukes are a bit more risky, especially when you're in Draken's location and you don't have, like, you know, super great water.
That is true.
So I understand why you wouldn't use the underground nukes, but, you know, 6k dynamites, toss some of those suckers at that those off-worlds, see what happens.
He got so many claims. Where did he get all these claims from, Fredward? Seems like it's expansive here in one of his spaces.
Well, he's gotten 4 more claims. Some of those are other players' claims.
Yeah, fair enough. And I think they gave out some free claims too.
Right, so Fredward just needs to sell out of themselves and take out Spect. This won't be very long. And Fredward will take a commanding victory over everyone else.
And not many mistakes out of Fred right there. It's a very good game indeed. We did see him take on those 30k in the beginning, but he always had it under control. So, absolutely good performance.
And was lucky that nobody really punished him too much for it, right? You had Zephyr was never really in a position to punish people based on not being in upgrade materials, right? They were lagging so far behind, and Zephyr's like, yeah, I had a bad start to this one. Unfortunately, we'd have to agree just a little, right? Just a little bit of a bad start.
Yeah. Oh, it happens though. What do? You gotta do your very best. Then you gotta rewatch the cast and see if you can improve in any way.
Yep, Drakens was keeping up with Fredward right until they decided to buy all of Zephyr's stock, and we harped on that already, so we won't harp on it too much more, right?
Yeah, I think a key in this game too is the fact that we got 3 robotics here, and the 3 robotics is underproducing in terms of steel. We do see it ending up here at almost 300k. You had a lot of people really struggling to find their upgrades. In the meantime, Fredward is just bypassing all of that, being a nomad, using his own silicon to upgrade. So he just ended up to be in a fabulous spot, to be honest with you. Sephrim really just dragging that steel price up too. And the other's not in a great position to produce either.
No, Drakens, the one downside with their found, probably didn't commit enough to iron, especially once the nukes started flying, didn't defend their iron from the nukes. That's something you always need to ask yourself, is like, are my primary resources well defended? In the Draken's case, his water was vulnerable. There's no goon squad on it. Their iron was vulnerable. No goon squad is on it. So you need to defend that. And then Spec had a decent game. Spec's problem was they went really early into that life support, but they were shipping from so far away and didn't get the power online to deal with that shipping until the power price had crashed. So they manually paid off a lot of debt. You manage your claims a little bit better, put up power a little bit sooner. That allows you to make that life support play and allows you to earn that money without getting yourself into D+1 debt, I think is where Sept peaked at before, paying their way out.
Yeah, and while those greenhouse farms were very lucrative in terms of the food price, they actually went through 2 dust storms where they're low in production, so you get way less out of them. So maybe he was too soon into life support and rather should have focused power down there.
Yeah, that's one of those random things. Dust storms, probably the most annoying random event on Mars, because they are both positive and negative effects, where all the other random events either just change the prices or solar flares are only positive.
Mm-hmm. I do want to give some feedback on Sephrim though, if he's watching this, and that is primary resources. You need to cover your upgrade costs. It doesn't help to transition out of that too soon. You gotta, if you're a robot, you gotta produce steel. You most likely gotta produce aluminium, and then you can get away with buying into electronics. But you gotta cover that, otherwise you're gonna have a really hard time upgrading. And no upgrading, that doesn't give you access to those lucrative claims that you really need to have. Move into stuff like electronics in the late game, yeah?
Yeah, I'd say somewhere between 80 and 90% of the game, just focusing on 80 to 90% of maps on Mars, just focusing on those basic upgrade resources early, HQ1, then expanding it out on HQ2 and going to something that makes you money is at least a good move, if not the best move, right? And then you just got to learn from experience what those other 10 to 20% of the time is where you don't do that. But as a default, that's like a good default thing to have in mind, right?
Yeah. If you get that nailed down, if you could do that with confidence every time and you nail it, then you can start to be more experimentative, and you could try and mix in other concepts and try and analyze and see, did this work, did it not work, what made this work, what made it not work. But just have as a basic foundation of your play, playing on the basic resources. I think is a good where to start. A good place to start, and it's going to get you far in a tournament like this one. Yeah.
Yep. With one exception, don't do it when steel is low and iron is high.
Absolutely.
That's the one exception. All right, let's see how all our other matches are going. If we have any others there, everyone is done.